Uriguri, author unknown. Uriguri was a worm, a mighty worm was he. He stepped upon the railroad tracks, the train he did not see. Uriguri. Celery by Ogden Nash. Celery raw develops the jaw, but celery stews more quietly chewed. The Little Man Who Wasn't There by Hugh Mears. As I was going up the stair, I met a man who wasn't there. He wasn't there again today. I wish he'd stay away. The Vulture by Hilaire Belloc. The vulture eats between his meals, and that's the reason why he very, very rarely feels as well as you or I. His eye is dull, his head is bald, his neck is growing thinner. Oh, what a lesson for us all, to only eat at dinner. After the Party by William Wise. Jonathan Blake ate too much cake. He isn't himself today. He's tucked up in bed with a feverish head, and he doesn't much care to play. Jonathan Blake ate too much cake, and 3 kinds of ice cream, too. From his latest reports, he's quite out of sorts, and I'm sure the reports are true. I'm sorry to say, and he also ate 6 pickles, a pie, and a pear. In fact, I confess, it's a reasonable guess he ate practically everything there. Yes, Jonathan Blake ate too much cake, so he's not at his best today, but there's no need for sorrow. If you come back tomorrow, I'm sure he'll be out to play.
Sing.
6. Singing Time by Rose Fileman. I wake in the morning early, and always the very first thing, I poke out my head, and I sit up in bed, and I sing, and I sing, and I sing. The Yak by Hilaire Belloc. As a friend to the children, commend me the yak. You will find him exactly the thing. It will carry and fetch. You can ride on its back, or lead it about with a string. The Tartar who dwells on the plains of Tibet, a desolate region of snow, has for centuries made it a nursery pet, and surely the Tartar should know. And tell your papa where the yak could be got, and if he is awfully rich, he will buy you the creature, or else he will not. I cannot be positive which. Beaten Genius, Little Old Man by John Bennett. A little old man of the sea went out in a boat for a sail. The water came in almost up to his chin, and he had nothing with which to bail. But this little old man of the sea just drew out his jackknife so stout, with a hole in his blade in the bottom he made, so that all of the water ran out. My Shadow by Robert Louis Stevenson. I have a little shadow that goes in and out of me, and what could be the use of him is more than I can see. He is very, very like me from the heels up to the head, and I see him jump before me when I jump into my bed. The funniest thing about him is the way he likes to grow. Not at all like proper children, which is always very slow. For he sometimes shoots up taller like an India rubber ball, and he sometimes gets so little that there's none of him at all. He hasn't got a notion of how children ought to play, and can only make a fool of me in every sort of way. He'd stayed so close beside me. He's a coward, you can see. I think shame just sticks to Nursey as that shadow sticks to me. One morning, very early, before the sun was out, I rose and found the shining dew on every buttercup. But my lazy little shadow, like an errand sleepyhead, had stayed at home behind me and was fast asleep in bed. There was an old person whose habits, by Edward Lear. There was an old person whose habits induced him to feed upon rabbits. When he'd eaten 18, he turned perfectly green, upon which he really English those habits. Jonathan Bing by Beatrice Curtis Brown. Poor old Jonathan Bing went out in his carriage to visit the king, but everyone pointed and said, "Look at that! Jonathan Bing has forgotten his hat." He'd forgotten his hat. Poor old Jonathan Bing went home and put on a new hat for the king. But up by the palace a soldier said, "Hi, you can see the king. You've forgotten your time." He'd forgotten his time. Poor old Jonathan Bing. He put on a beautiful time for the king. But when he arrived, an archbishop said, "Ho, you can come to court in pajamas, you know." Poor old Jonathan Bing went home and addressed a short note to the king. "If you please will excuse me, I won't come to tea, for home is the best place for all people like me." Whole Duty of Children by Edward Lear. A child should always say what's true, and speak when he is spoken to, and behave mannerly at table, at least as far as he is able. Godfrey Gordon Gustavus Score by William Wrighty Renz. Godfrey Gordon Gustavus Score, no doubt you have heard the name before, was a boy who would never shut a door. The wind might whistle, the wind might roar, and teeth be aching and throats be sore, but still he never would shut the door. His father would beg, his mother implore, "Godfrey Gordon Gustavus Score, we really do wish you would shut the door." Their hands they rubbed, their hair they tore, but Godfrey Gordon Gustavus Score was deaf as the buoy out at the Nore. When he walked forth, the folks would roar, "Godfrey Gordon Gustavus Score, why don't you think to shut the door?" They rigged out a shutter with sail and oar, and threatened to pack off Gustavus Score on a voyage of penance to Singapore. But he begged for mercy and said, "No more, pray do not send me to Singapore on a shutter, and then I will shut the door." "You will," said his parents, "then keep on shore, but mind you do, for the plague is sore of a fellow that never will shut the door." Godfrey Gordon Gustavus Score.